also review circles so you have a better understanding. So circles are non-polygons. They're not polygons. Polygons have no curves. Circles have curves, obviously. And here's our circle. Here's a circle. So it's a non-polygon. And we can even make a circle within a circle. Why don't we do that? You use anything. You use a compass. You can use tape like I'm using, jars. So here we go. Let's make a little circle inside a circle. Well, it doesn't have to be perfect. Close enough to being perfect. Why not? There we go. A circle within a circle, a little crooked. So this, if you have a circle within a circle, they're concentric. So I'll write it over here. Concentric. Concentric. Right? A circle within a circle. Concentric. There's a term you should know. So let's label our circle. So we should all know that circles are 360 degrees, and of course that marker doesn't want to work. There we go. Good enough. 360 degrees. But mostly sometimes you're going to see radians. So it's 360 degrees. Put a degree sign there. Or a circle is 2 pi radians. Important to remember. 2 pi radians is the circle. And you should also know while we're at it, 180 degrees would be then pi radians. Pi radians. And we'll talk more about radians in the next video. So let's look at the parts of a circle. Alright, here's our circle. We'll label some parts of it as it goes in and out. Pulsating, our pulsating circle, look right. Let's focus that. So here we have the diameter, and you should know this, right? The diameter cuts the circle in half, and it's the whole length of the circle. So this is the diameter. We'll put an arrow there and say diameter. Right. And half a diameter is a radius. So we can make a radius going across from the center of the circle. Here we have 2, and 2 radiuses is called a radii. So the radius, we know, is half the diameter. Right, so if the diameter was 10, we know the radius is 5. And you can make a bunch of radii, because that's the plural. Write down the plural, radii, the plural. So when you have 2, right, a radius and another radius, and they have an arc, this is the arc. An arc is the length of part of the curve. That's the arc. And we'll look at arc length. Also, not in this video, but we'll go over the arc length in other videos about circles. And then, of course, this angle, where we have 2 radii and a center, is called a central angle. So I'll write that down, central angle. It's like a slice of pizza. A slice of pizza is a central angle. And again, you can make as many radii as you want. Just keep making them in a circle. Okay, and then you can also make a line going from one end of the circle to the other, like a diameter, and that's called a chord. Right, so we have a diameter, the length of the entire circle, cut in half. We have a chord going from one point to another point. Anywhere on the circle is a chord. A radius goes from the center to the edge of the circle. It's half the diameter. And we have our central angle, which looks like a piece of pizza. But we have other lines, right? So I'll make another line. Let's use another marker. Well, that green gets blurry. So if we have a line, let's say we have a line that's cut right through the circle. It's going right through it. Of course, we need a better marker than that, right? Darken it up a little. So if you see a line going right through the circle, it's the secant line. It's intersecting the circle. So that's the secant line. I blur it up a little. And then you can also have a line that just touches at one point in the circle from the outside. Just touches, like right there. That's the tangent line. The tangent line. And they call it the point of tangency. The point of tangency. So those are some of the points and the parts of a circle. So let's move on. All right, so let's put some points on this circle. So let's say that's the center, and it could be any letter. Let's say it's E, center E, and we can make a central angle. Remember, to make any central angle here, this is 2 radii. Do you remember what this is called? The length of that curve? Length of the curve is the arc. Right, the arc. Right, not the arc with the K, that's as in Noah's Ark, or not an arch, like a Gothic or Roman arch that you see in hallways, doorways that is, or the St. Louis arch. Right, this is an arc, part of a circle, and we will find the arc length, like I said previously, in another video. So let's just label these points on the circle and make that F, why not, and make this, what do you guess, right? We'll make a G. So we can say we have an arc, and this is the symbol for an arc. That's the symbol. Looks like an arc, right? We can say arc FG, right? And we can find that length. That's arc FG. And you can have an angle degree here, and sometimes they just say X degrees. There we go. So let's look at one. Now let's look at trying to find first the circumference of a circle. And then we'll try to find the radius of a circle, and then we'll do other problems. And of course, you should be familiar with this since middle school. But let's just say, and again, the formula for the circumference, we'll bring it down here, C for circumference, and there's 2 types of formulas. You can say, most people use 2 pi r. That's how you get the circumference of a circle. Or some people just use 2 pi, d pi. Same thing. So if you want to do d pi or 2 pi r, whatever one you want, d pi. That's circumference. So let's say, for example, that we knew the diameter, and let's just extend this out here. So let's say we had a diameter, and let's say the diameter was just, well, let's say 10. The diameter is 10. What would the circumference be? Just reviewing now. So again, the circumference will be 10 times pi. 10 pi. Okay, and 10 times pi, or you can estimate it by 10 times 3. You can say it's around 30, and we don't have a measurement, so we'll just say units. But in actuality, if you put it on your calculator, the circumference of the circle would be about 31.42, something like that. And we would say units. And remember, circumference is not squared, so you would just leave it as units or whatever measurement you're using. So that's finding the circumference. Now let's do a problem where we're trying to find the radius. And we have the inside degree here. So let's do one of those problems. All right, so here we have a central angle, RQS or SQR. And let's say that it was 60 degrees. We have 60 degrees here. And this 5, this represents the arc length. So we say the arc of RS, and we say it equals 5. Right, 5 measurements, 5 units. How can we find the circumference? So this is how you're going to do it. We're going to set a proportion. We have 60 degrees, so if we know that this is 60 degrees, the rest of the circle has to be 300 degrees, because 300 plus 60 is 360. But we're using 60 degrees out of 360. And we want to make a ratio. So we have degrees on one side, and then we want to find the arc length on the other side. That way we can get the circumference. So we can say 5 over the circumference. Remember, the circumference is the entire area of the entire length of the circle. That's the circumference. It's like saying perimeter. So here we have a part and we have a total, a part and we have a total. We have the part of the degree and the total degree, the part of the length and the total length. And we put C because we don't know what it is. So that's how you would set it up, set these questions up. Now, you should remember, previously I showed you the formula. I'll bring it up here. Let's bring this up so you see it more. Boom, there we go. Circumference is 2 pi r, or d pi. So let's use 2 pi r. You can solve these a lot easier. So the first thing we want to do is we want to try to reduce here. And remember, when when they're sharing a circle, you know you can just get rid of that circle. So now you have 6 over 36. And you know 6 over 36 is just 1 over 6, right? So that reduces to 1/6. Right? That makes it a little easier when we want to multiply. And here we have 5 over c. And now we have two proportions we can cross multiply. Right? Solve our proportions, we cross multiply. And here we're going to have 60. It's 30, excuse me. 5 times 6 is 30. Equals, and c times 1 is just c. So 30 equals c. The circumference is c. So what is the radius? Let's go back up here. We know that c is 30. So we're going to say 30 equals 2 pi r. So let's divide out the 2 on both sides. Now we're going to have 15 equals pi r. Remember, we're trying to solve for r, trying to solve for the radius. So we have to divide pi out on both sides. So now we have 15 over pi equals r. So let's write that better. We have 15 over pi equals the radius. And you can put that in your calculator. Just do 15 divided by pi. And you're going to get about, the radius is going to be about, put that about symbol, 4.76. That's the radius. All right, let's do a problem here. Let's put a dot in the center. Let's say that's the center. We'll call it T today. Why not? And we'll make a degree, something like that. And we'll say it's 80 degrees. That's the central angle. Remember the central angle. And let's say we have an arc length of 6, something like that. So, how would you get the circumference of the circle? How would you get that if you have an arc length of 6? So pause the tape, try to figure it out, and then we'll go over it. All right, so again, let's make our ratio. So again, we have now 80 over 360. Right, so we want the part to the whole, 80 degrees to the whole amount, which is 360. We're equaling it to the circumference, right? We have the arc of 6, and we don't know what the circumference is. We're going to try to find it out, right? So again, remember, they both share a 0 here, so let's get rid of that. So now we have 8 over 36, which we can also reduce. You know, you can keep reducing it to 2/9, right? And we have 6 over c. So if we cross multiply here, we're going to have, I'll bring this down more. There we go. We're going to have 2 times c is 2c, and 6 times 9 is 54. And so we just divide the 2 out on both sides, and we'll get their circumference. Right? And we know that's 27. So we have the circumference, and now what is the radius? So what should we do now to get the radius? Well, remember, there's another formula for circumference. We can bring it up here. Circumference is also 2 pi r. Remember, 2 pi r. And we already know the circumference. We solved that already. We have 27. So 27 equals 2 pi r. We'll divide out the 2. Let's bring this arrow over here so we see it. Divide out the 2. So now we're going to have 13.5 equals pi times radius. And divide out pi. So 13.5 divided by pi is the radius. That gives us about, the radius is about 4.297, or about 4.3. That's the radius. So in the next video, we'll talk more about the arc length. Great job.